Having already covered the Wahoo Kickr Core Direct Drive Smart Trainer at launch over at Eurobike 2018, we're already across the specs of the unit, the pricing, and the ride feel, because Ray and I got to take one out over to the RV park and give it a quick run for its money. But what was it like when we had one here in the lab with the production level units? Well, today that's what I've got. We've got 200 Ks, many hours on the unit, and all the details you need to know about the Wahoo Kickr Core Direct Drive Smart Trainer. The initial impressions of this unit were pretty good, and I was really hoping this is going to be the 10 out of 10 Smart Trainer for the 2018-19 trainer season, because it really sat itself in the right spot. You got the Kickr Direct Drive Trainer up here, the premium flagship product from Wahoo, the Kickr Snap down here, and it filled that middle point right here price-wise, but feature-wise, it was more up here. Speaking of those features of the trainer, let's go through a quick 60-second recap of the Wahoo Kickr Core, starting now. It is a direct drive interactive smart trainer, so your rear wheel comes off. It's interactive, so software will control either erg mode, sim mode, level mode, you name it. It sings and dances everything you need to do for your indoor training. Bike compatibility, all the bikes. Standard quick release support out of the box, and also through axle adapters supplied, so 12 by 142, 12 by 148. All ready to go out of the box. The core comes with a Shimano and SRAM compatible free hub. You will need to supply your own cassette for this unit though. Connection protocols, ANT+, FEC, and Bluetooth Smart, so everything you want to connect to, you can connect to it with this trainer. Power accuracy claims of plus or minus 2%, maximum gradient simulation of 16%, which is pretty steep, and maximum wattage 1800 watts. Flywheel size, 12 pounds, 5.4 kilos, very similar to that of the Kickr 1, 2, and 3. Unit weight itself, 40 pounds, 18 kilos, and a small footprint box, which is an important factor, I think. If you're going into a store and buying something, having to haul a massive box out, this one's pretty compact, goes in the back of the car, you can get this thing moved around pretty easily, and noise level, it is quiet. It uses the same belt as their Wahoo Kickr 18. Bonus round, transmit speed and power data. You will need to provide your own cadence sensor for this one. No front wheel riser included. That's not too bad because the unit itself is quite low, about the same height as a normal wheel, so your bike will be level anyway. Kickr Climb compatible with the rear pivoting axle hubs. Kickr Headwind compatible, of course it is, because it transmits speed and you're transmitting heart rate. And there is a spin down process required at once out of the box, just to be sure, and once every few weeks. Jumping over to the pricing, and good news is it remains the same since launch. So $8.99 US dollars, £6.99 pounds, €7.99 euros, and $11.99 Canadian and Aussie dollars. Now with all that covered, let's get into the unboxing, the build, the ride, and what it was really like having the Kickr Core here in the Llama Lab for the last 2 weeks. Okay, speeding this process up with the power of video editing. Core itself, the very small form factor box, which is really handy, easy to cart around. Unboxing, quite straightforward. Manuals, power cables, and 2 legs in the unit itself, front and back. Okay, a rundown of what is in the box itself. The Kickr Core unit, the 2 legs back and front, the larger one is the front one. The build kit there with all the tools required, power pack, manual, and skewer. Now onto the build where the longer leg, or the larger leg, goes on the front. And the smaller leg on the back. Okay, all built, all ready to go. And my other favorite part, which is putting the cassette on with the cassette holder tool that comes with Shimano cassettes these days. Sliding straight on and finishing up with the other 2 cogs. Pivoting axle adapter for my through axle that I'll be using on my road bike, both sides, and the quick release skewer in. And here we are, the fully built Kickr Core Smart Trainer from Wahoo. Quite a neat design, looks very much like an original Kickr. Okay, and because the Kickr stickers on this unit are the same size as the original Kickr Gen 1, 2, and 3, I had some leftover vinyl stickers here. So I'm just going to jazz my Kickr Core up and we're going to go for gold decals. Something a little different for the Llama Lab. Time for the bike installation. Rear brake opened, into the lowest gear on the back, rear wheel out, and installed on the 11 tooth there in the back, so I know exactly how it's indexed and snugged down nice and tight so it doesn't go anywhere. Power on, and just a quick pedal to make sure the bike's indexed correctly, make sure the unit works. And away we go. The noise you can hear there is primarily the chain that I've got, which is a waxed chain at the moment, a little bit louder than a standard chain. And the ratchet there is probably the loudest thing you can hear on this trainer. One thing to note with the design of the unit, it actually has your bike offset a little bit to the right. You can see here with the camera angle, the bike is situated on the trainer over to the right. So it's a little asymmetric. You can see here my little stability test. It's a lot easier to lean over to the right than it is to the left because of where the bike is positioned on the trainer. So the trainer itself is symmetrical, but your bike isn't. Over here now to the firmware check, loading up the Wahoo Fitness app, connecting to the Kickr Core over Bluetooth. And I'll just make sure it's got the latest firmware on this unit before we get really stuck into the Llama Lab test and collecting some data. So scrolling down to the bottom here after we've connected, it checks with the server and tells me at this point in time it has the latest firmware on there. Happy days. We'll give it a few more seconds here for it to pull up the rest of the info. There we go. And by default, erg mode power smoothing is on. So we'll quickly toggle that off for the tests where it gives us the true power that it's doing within erg mode. I think that's about all we need from there. So yep, good to go. Firmware's updated. Erg mode power smoothing is off. And over here with the X-ray iPad I have, we can see the belt configuration inside. So that's the silent belt, same as used on the Kickr 18. Nifty little app, that one on the iPad. And one last thing is pairing the Kickr Climb to the Kickr Core using the proximity pairing with the remote. Pressing and holding in a few seconds, and there we go, up and down. Good to go for our ride. As nobody has time to watch me ride erg mode all day, I'll focus here on one of the interesting things that came up with the Kickr Core over at Eurobike when I opened up a sprint at the car park there. A lot of people said it looked a little unstable. Here is a sprint on the Innsbruck course with the unit in a proper pain cave. Definitely not as much movement as we saw there on the gravel over at Eurobike. So that's no problems with all the stability there, putting out some power. Now over to one of the climbs on Innsbruck. Just making sure everything is happy days with the Kickr Climb. Up it goes, and down it goes. Up it goes, and up I go. Alrighty, after many hours indoors and over 200 virtual kilometers on the Kickr Core, let's jump over to my favorite website on the internet, DC Runmakers Analysis Tool, where we can compare multiple power meters with an overlay and just see who's telling the truth and who's kind of not. Firstly, a recap of the data from the ride there in the RV park with Ray. So my 20-minute steady state, 200 watts, 200 watts. The aciomas themselves were dropping out a bit. We're having a bit of ant signal problem, but you can see when it was working fine there, the steady state stuff was brilliant. Into the sprints between the aciomas and the Kickr Core, and the Kickr Core just overestimated the sprint, just overshot, I'd call it, by there's about 250 watts there overshoot. Again, this was in the car park with, I gave it a little bit of leeway here. Early edition unit wasn't released yet, so it was just overshooting the power. That's what we're seeing there. That's the observations. Into the overs and unders and then just riding along. Pretty close there, not too bad. Kind of what we expect. It's about 15 watts or so there. But again, that was the initial ride, initial firmware, and in a car park of a demo unit from Eurobike, but the real test. Here in the Llama Lab, let's start on this one here. So the Llama Lab test done here. Looking very, very similar. So jumping in here to the 200 watts steady state and up against the Acioma pedals. 227 watts versus 228 watts average for there. So 1-for-1 steady state stuff in erg mode. The Kickr core and the Asioma pedals, pretty good. Into the sprints. And surprise, surprise, same thing as what we saw in the car park over in Germany there. It just, the Kickr core just overshot again. It overshot the power that I was putting out. So again, timing wise, it might be 1 or 2 seconds either way here, depending on how they record. But you can just see there it did overshoot the Asioma pedals by a couple of hundred watts for a little bit. Again, just riding along fine. And then look, the overs and unders there look very similar to what I saw in the car park. So it's close. It's very close. It's not, I wouldn't call this killer accurate, especially when we're really, really hurting on the bike and really getting ugly on the pedals. So, okay, look, steady state stuff, fine. Overall, that's pretty much that's pretty good. That's pretty good. But the real test, just riding along and really throwing down in a race on Zwift indoors. So over to the Hump Day ride, the Aussie Hump Day ride every Wednesday night, massive bunch ride, 300 plus riders, which involves about 40 minutes of us just having a bit of fun with a big group of mates from all over the world, just riding along. And you can see here, the data, I did have the stages left, right, on as well, but I'm just showing the Asioma data for now. So we have here 171 on the Vero Asiomas, 172 on the Kickr core there. So for about 20 minutes or so, just riding along, spot on, pretty good. Then the race lap, where I threw in 1, 2, 3, 4 attacks and a long sprint at the end. So diving a little closer to that, and we do start seeing those separations, especially on those sprint sections, those really, really hard, 600 watt plus sections between the Kickr core and the Asioma. So again, riding along, not too bad, but you can see here, the Kickr core is overshooting again those watts. Here, overshooting again. Bit of a slower ramp up here into another overshoot. And at the end, this is a big standout. This was in the run to the line. So ramping up here, pretty close. And then as soon as I really, really jumped on the pedals, well, as much as I had, which was according to the Asioma's 825 watts, the Kickr core was 100 watts plus. So overshooting there again. So a bit of a theme there of overshooting. Ride feel itself was still pretty good. It was definitely a nice ride feel. I'll speak more about that later on, but just that power overshoot. Next up, Innsbruck. Every single direction and road on the Innsbruck course on Zwift. Again, another test of this unit, really getting my hands dirty with this unit, giving it hell, seeing if the power will drift later on in the ride when the thing really heats up. Look, just riding along is fine. You can see here all the data is looking pretty good. Later on in the ride here, so 1 hour plus. Zooming in here, we've got 247 versus 242. A few out of the saddle accelerations there above 300 watts. Again, the Kickr core just a bit above the Vero Asiomas. Now, the Asiomas themselves are a good baseline up against the Neo, up against the Kickr 18, and every other trainer. And there's multiple points of reference I have here to trust the Asiomas. And into the final sprint again, and again, we're consistently seeing the Kickr core above in the sprints. It's just overshooting those sprints. So here by around, what do we got, 200 or 120, 130 watts sustained there for quite a few seconds. Jumping quickly down to the overall stats of that ride, max power there, 1150 on the Kickr core and 1080. So again, a bit of an overshoot there by around, what have we got, 120, 130, 140 watts there in the sprint. But just riding along fine. It's just those sprint overshoots that just really took away from this trainer being the 10 out of 10 solution for the 2018-2019 season, in my opinion. So there we are, my data from multiple rides and over 200 virtual kilometers there under quite a few different scenarios. Uphill, downhill, sprints, erg mode, bunch rides, kicks to the line, etc., etc. Very disappointing to see that overshoot in the power. I am being a little bit nitpicky. The firmware is still quite new. There's all chance that they will actually refine that. The ride feel of the unit was very familiar to me, having done many thousands of Ks on the Kickr 1, Kickr 2, Kickr 3, and now clocking up some more Ks on the Kickr 4. That flywheel itself does hold momentum, so as soon as you're pedaling away, you want to back off a little bit. You're not punished. You're not slowed down straight away, and you've got to push that pedal stroke over. If you've ever been on a trainer with very, very low inertia, it's a horrible experience. This one itself will kick you over the dead spots, just like outside. Definitely doesn't feel like you're riding up a muddy, grassy hill like some trainers do. So that flywheel, even though it's lower than the Kickr 18 and slightly smaller than the Kickr 1, 2, and 3, very familiar ride, and yeah, it feels like you're riding a bike. With the Kickr core using that quiet belt design from the Kickr 18, it was quiet, and it did really reset my baseline here in the Lama lab. A few days ago, I did switch over to another trainer that had a bit of a whir to it, and I was taken aback a little. I had to turn the music up a little bit. So having used the Kickr 18 and the Kickr Core for many weeks and gotten used to the lower level of noise, switching to something else was really quite an interesting experience. So that silence is the new baseline for 2018. It's definitely there with the Kickr Core. So the one thing stopping me from giving this the massive stamp of approval of 10 out of 10, it's down to about 9 out of 10 because of those sprint overshoots. I am being quite critical, but we are moving down the road here of smart trainers. Remember, the Kickr itself is 4 years old now plus, so we need to start really cramming those things down, getting them right in firmware version 1. So yes, I am being critical, and I'm hoping to see a firmware update to get those sprints more into line, because we weren't seeing that with the Kickr 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's just the core that is overshooting that power. And just another reminder, this unit doesn't come with a cassette or a cadence sensor. Two things that do come with the Kickr, or the not Core Kickr, the more expensive one. So you do need to factor into that for total cost of ownership. So there we have it, my take on the Wahoo Kickr Core from here in the Llama Lab. Over 200 virtual kilometers done, many hours, and in many different scenarios tested. Almost that 10 out of 10 I was hoping for. I was hoping it was going to be the answer for everyone and just be done with it. It'll make my life a lot easier, but we're not quite there yet. 9 out of 10 until they can squeeze that power number down in those sprints to give us what we're really doing. There we are. Stay tuned for any updates on this unit itself, because I'll be all over it, and then we'll do it all again. Alrighty, thanks for watching. We'll be back with more soon.